Hey everyone, Jess Barney here. Welcome back to the Barney Homestead. I am super excited to share with you today's video. It is going to be my top 3 best gardening decisions that I made this year in the 2021 growing season. Now, I must be honest, this is not my idea. I borrowed this video idea from Bethany over at Chicago Gardener. I will link her channel down below. Be sure to check her out. She has the most beautiful, amazing container garden in the city of Chicago, and it's just a wealth of knowledge and inspiration. So definitely be sure to check her channel out. So these top 3 best gardening decisions that I'm going to share with you are in no particular order, so let's just go ahead and get into it. One of the best decisions I made for my garden this year was to utilize row covers in my spring and fall garden. And there were a couple things I noticed when I used those row covers. The first thing I noticed was I had much better seed germination for things that I direct sowed in the garden. The second thing I noticed was whether it was direct sown or transplanted, so a seedling or a seed start, I had a lot less damage from pests, insects, or little critters like rabbits and squirrels. So my smaller, more tender plants were able to get through that initial growing stage and really grow strong and thrive into full-size healthy plants. Hands down, row covers were definitely one of my top best gardening decisions that I made this year. I, again, had so much success using them that I am definitely planning on adding more of them to my garden next year. And I'm also planning on expanding the type of row cover that I use. So this year I exclusively used frost fabric. Next year I plan to incorporate plastic covering, frost fabric, and netting through the summer months as well. One of the other best gardening decisions I made this year was to include vertical growing space in my garden, and really for me, expanded vertical gardening space in my garden. This year I utilized what you see behind me, which were cattle panels. They're 4 feet wide by 16 feet long, and I had 2 of them in my garden, creating 2 arched trellises between 4 raised beds within my garden. This was a huge game changer for me. It increased my growing space by 128 square feet. Without these vertical cattle panel arch trellises, I only have about 260 square feet of growing space. So it was another third, it was a total of a third of my overall growing space came from these cattle panel arch trellises. The other thing that I noticed when I used these was, number one, I could grow things that I probably wouldn't be able to grow just in my raised beds because I don't really have the space on the ground. Things like my pumpkins and my butternut squashes. I was able to train them to grow up the trellises and free up a lot of that ground space that I just really don't have because I need to be able to walk in the garden. So I don't want stuff kind of sprawling on my pathways. And the other benefit to using these was it significantly reduced the pressure that I get in the summer from powdery mildew. When things grow vertically, they're not sitting obviously on the ground, so they're not on top of all of that moisture in the soil. And when we start to get really hot in July and August, where I grow, we could get into the 90s for many days. We have 80+% humidity, very common for weeks at a time. And again, it's inevitable that you're gonna have powdery mildew. What I noticed for the things that I grew on the cattle panels, the arch trellises, was they still got powdery mildew, but it didn't spread as quickly and it was much more manageable. So that was a bonus. I was able to get a better crop production, but also just, again, overall better, healthier plants longer in the garden. And then the other thing that was really great about adding these cattle panels was just the beauty that they bring to the garden. When they were filled with my pumpkins, my butternut squash, my cantaloupes, my cucumbers, it was just a beautiful space to be in. My summer garden, this was my favorite summer garden that I've ever had out of all the years that I've been gardening. And it was just, honestly, like I describe it as walking through a living piece of art. And it was just so wonderful. And if you've been gardening for a while, or even if you're starting to think about gardening, whether it's a few pots, raised beds, in ground, the one thing that I would say is create a space, create a garden space that you want to be in. because the best medicine for the garden is the gardener, and you're going to want to spend time in your garden if you enjoy that space. And so for me, these these arched trellises using the cattle panels really created a space that I just didn't want to leave, wanted to just stay in all day long. So next year I will definitely continue to use these, but I will also be adding more cattle panels to my growing space so that I can continue to expand my square footage, not just horizontally, but vertically in the garden. And then my third best gardening decision I made this year was what I'm gonna call planting all of the things. And so what I did was I went back and looked at all of my seed packets, all of my photos, and I determined that I actually grew 62 different varieties of fruits, vegetables, herbs, and flowers in my garden this year. I thought it was going to be close to 50. I was really shocked to learn it was 62. And the reason why for me this was a really good decision was because I am still in the process with my garden of learning what grows well, what I use a ton of, what I enjoy preserving. And so I am still trying to grow as many different things as possible because I want to have those answers. And being able to grow 62 different things, I definitely have a better understanding of what works well, what thrives, what I enjoy eating, what I enjoy preserving. And so as I continue to garden over the next couple years and throughout my life, I'm going to be able to make better decisions about what I'm planting in my space. So to recap, the top 3 best gardening decisions that I made this year in 2021 were adding row covers to my spring and fall garden, adding vertical growing space to my garden, and finally, planting as many varieties of fruits, vegetables, herbs, and flowers that I could fit in my growing space. I would love to hear in the comments below what are some of the best decisions you made for your garden this year, and I will catch you all in the next video. Thanks so much for watching, and I will talk to you soon.